podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Fan Film Boyz podcast.
Yeah. Welcome to the Fan Film Boyz. Well, welcome back to the Fan Film Boyz. It's going to be another great episode show tonight. I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Dave.
Hello there.
Of the Super Moo Bros.
Yes.
So, we're going to get right into this one.
Yeah,
this one is a long one, so there's a lot to talk about.
And it's a universe that has a huge fan base, probably second only to Star Wars.
And this is the first time we've actually covered it on the Fan Film Boyz. We have not done this universe before. So, if you aren't aware of it, it is going to be the Lord of the Rings universe.
It wants us, the precious.
It's going to be the Tolkien universe. It's going to be that Middle-earth universe. Yes, we're talking about Hunt for Gollum. Now, I'm going to go through some of the details here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the movies first, the whole Tolkien universe and everything like that, and then we'll go to this movie a bit. But this movie is a runtime of 39 minutes, so it's a long fan film, okay?
It is.
Has over 13 million views on YouTube, so, up there, it's 44,000 likes. So again, I don't know what percentage is. Maybe I'm going to work on that one day again. Published by the Independent Online Cinema and was published in May of 2009.
Yeah, so pretty old too.
It is. It is. I think it was actually, when you do the math on that, I think it actually came out before, what's the word I'm thinking about? It probably came out before Hobbit, right?
Before Hobbit stuff,
Yeah,
yes.
Lord of the Rings, the movies had already been out, but I don't think the Hobbit.
Yeah, they were like 2005, 2006, 2007.
Because it does pay homage to Jackson, to Tolkien. I mean, there's a lot in there. I have read The Hobbit. I've started Lord of the Rings, but I have seen the movies.
Yeah.
All right. And I enjoyed this movie. I mean, there's a lot to talk about here, but I want to say first off that I'm gonna be in the camp where I really did enjoy this movie. I thought it was there was a lot about it. There was things that I will pick, but I really did enjoy this movie. But let's start. Obviously, I want to go with what you think, okay? And then let's go back and forth and talk about it.
I am not a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not. I mean, I don't hate the films, but I don't like them either. I've seen each of them maybe once. I'll say the Fellowship of the Ring I've seen a handful of times because that's my favorite one. I like Fellowship of the Ring a lot. I don't like Two Towers, and I really don't like Return of the King. I really respect them for their visual aspect. I really respect them because they were one of the first films to do this, like filming them all back to back, and just really, Warner Brothers saying like, we're not just making one film, we're signing up and we're doing three. Like the only films that had really done this before that was Back to the Future 2 and 3 did this. So Peter Jackson, who was a guy who was a cult filmmaker pretty much, like he and our friend Mark over at Cult Movie Cult has done the early works of Peter Jackson was their first basically 4 episodes. They
definitely check that out. Yeah, I mean, we'll put that in the show notes for everybody to be able to find those.
So, but for me, where I was like a big fan of Peter Jackson, I just wasn't a fan of this universe. And fantasy is not a place for me. You'd think it would be because like I love Star Wars and like, but I'm more of like this. I always go to the further like sci-fi bend. Mm-hmm. That's not to say like I said, like I think they're bad. I think they're long. I think they're long in the tooth. I think there's a lot of like talky parts, and there's people carrying swords, and I just want them to use them like all the time. Yeah. And they don't. And
I agree with you on that. There's always a sword on somebody's hip, yet that sometimes it spends more time on the hip than in the hand.
Yeah, and one of the things like I do really enjoy about it, it's it also the how powerful the weak can be, like how powerful the small can be, right? Like it's only this small insignificant creature such as a hobbit could carry the one ring Mordor and destroy it. I do like that. I do like that little parable and stuff like that. But as far as the films go, I just find them really long. And I've seen the extended editions. I think that might have been the problem. Yeah. I saw these in the movies, and the second time, like, I watched them was extended editions of them. Fuck, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to spend a weekend.
3.5 hours long, like all of them. Those extended editions are,
and those, and that's each movie. Like, there's 3 of the movies, and then the Hobbit itself was broken into.
Which is the biggest bullshit thing.
That was the biggest one. Yeah, no,
3 films.
Yeah.
You could have done one 3.5 hour long film, and I would have been cool with that if you wanted to fit it all in.
That one felt like a money grab. That one did. It's like
just too much.
Okay,
it's just
I
too much.
have to watch this one, then now I have to wait for the next one, and oh wait, look, I have to wait for another one.
The only thing The Hobbit did for me was it made me appreciate the original 3 more. Because I was like, oh, they were a whole lot better than this garbage.
Now, see, I like the story of The Hobbit a lot more than I like the story of The Lord of the Rings.
Same here. It's the only book I've read from Tolkien. So.
Exactly. But I preferred, like you just said, the movies of The Lord of the Rings over the movie of The Hobbit, because they tried to break it into 3 parts. Like, they told the stories very well in the 3 parts of The Lord of the Rings.
And they added unnecessary material to it, too.
Yeah, to make it that extended long.
Like, I don't remember, but Legolas is not in The Hobbit.
No.
Yeah. So they added, like, that whole bit.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's like, ugh. I mean, I took an actual class at college on fantasy literature, and one of the things that we talked about was The Hobbit. We talked about we read the annotated notes section of The Hobbit, and it was really good because it talked a lot about, like, oh, this is what he was really talking about here. This is what he was really focusing on there. Really broke the story down a lot more and told a little bit more about Tolkien. It told us a little bit more about, like, his story. And I know this fan film is also based on a lot of the appendixes and story that is actual from Tolkien. So, but it's told in a different way. Now, I think it's Amazon have just picked up talking about Aragorn and doing an Aragorn series. Is that right?
There will be a Lord of the Rings series, yes.
Exactly. So I know that they're probably going to touch on something similar to this as well. I don't know if it's going to be focused on Gollum and the hunt for Gollum, of course, but they're going to be touching on Aragorn before Lord of the Rings, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
One of the things, like, about this fan film is that, like we were talking about with Mass Effect and stuff like that, you have to kind of be a Tolkien fan, or you have to be at least like a film fan to get into this, because only in exposition is it ever mentioned, even in the books, that Strider was given the task of hunting Gollum down so that Gandalf the Grey can interrogate him pretty much. And I had to do some looking up here because I remember the films, and I remember, the orcs and Sauron, I believe, doing.
Sauron's the big bad, yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe Saruman, who was played by Christopher Lee. That's one thing. Saruman tortures Gollum to get the information from him. It's Hobbitses! Shire!
I love your voices. That's awesome.
So like that Gollum was interrogated. This story takes place after that.
Yeah.
After, Saruman has tortured him to get this information to find out where the One Ring is. And Gandalf kind of has an inkling that the ring that Bilbo found is the One Ring. So in an attempt to gather more information about it, he sends Strider from Bree, which is the town that we see Strider in the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, to hunt Gollum down and bring him to the elves city where Gandalf can interrogate him to get the rest of the information from him, to really, because before he goes and tells Bilbo, like, I need your fucking ring, Bilbo.
Yeah, I gotta get all my information straight before I.
Bilbo Baggins, do you take me for a conjurer of cheap tricks?
I'm sorry, he's Gandalf the Great. I don't know why he just doesn't go and get that ring from Bilbo. He's a fucking hobbit.
Yeah,
I mean, how
more
much
importantly than
respect
that, he's Ian McCullum. If he showed up at my door, is like, I need your wedding ring, and I love my wedding ring. It's a Star Wars. Yeah. It's a Star Wars wedding ring. It portrays the Battle of Hoth on my ring, and if Ian McCullum shows up at my door and says, I need that. I'm like, it's yours.
Yeah.
Anything for you.
Absolutely. You're Gandalf.
None of that.
You want my firstborn? She's right over here.
You're Magneto, motherfucker. Take it off my finger.
Now, that being said, that being said, the costuming, I thought, we've talked about this before in other fan films. I think we talked about it in Red Hood It. Costuming in this, I think, really stepped up.
It was good.
It was really, really good. Apart from some orcs.
Yeah. That was makeup with the orcs, I would say.
That was the makeup more than costuming. You're right on that.
I could see some lines, but to be fair, they're not working on a huge budget. I'm sure watching this, they clearly had a budget. If you're a fan film and you got horses, you got a budget.
Yeah,
horses are expensive.
You got a sword, you got a budget.
Yeah. But like just watching it, the orcs were a little wonky. One orc would look good, but the weird thing was he was standing next to another orc that looked like shit.
Yeah.
And then you get
the consistency just wasn't there with the orcs.
Exactly.
That's the thing I found about them. It wasn't like you see one really good one, then you see one really bad one. You're like,
keeping Gollum in far off shots
or in the sack the whole time.
Right.
I think that was really well done. That was one of my favorite parts of it because you don't have to have Gollum in there. You don't. And then
even when you see him close up, full bodied, he's in a tree and the moonlight is backlighting him, and you can't see any facial features, but you see the perfect outline of him, and it looks good.
Yeah.
Even when you see him at the end and you get a full shot of him, it's not perfect. They zoom in a little much and it looks like it's ripped from a video game.
I think it's either ripped from the video game or from the movies or something like that. It looks
like test footage from the films, right? But when you think about it and it's like it's a fan film, you're like, yeah, that's still pretty good. It's better than a lot of other fan films. So a lot of kudos to the way it looks. No kudos for fighting, for fight choreography. Awful.
Yeah, the fight between Strider and the orcs. Like, my first thought of anytime I see something like that, I'm like, okay, so one guy's going to take on a bunch of these guys. I'm like, when you're using phasers or guns or something like that, yeah, one person can take on a mass of people. But the problem I always have is that when watching these movies and one guy with a sword is trying to take on a bunch of people. I'm sorry, when you're swinging down on a sword, somebody's coming up from behind and putting a knife in your back.
Right. But so if you're going to show the main character take on 10 orcs or in anything, and you need to see how the fight develops. You need to have an awareness of where all the bad guys are. Otherwise, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel organic. And that's definitely they just all attack
from the front and they all die. I mean, it's like he's not even backing himself up against a wall where somebody can't come up behind him, or trap yourself in a little one-way area where they can only attack you from the front. No, he's right in the middle of the woods.
I mean, he does get a saving grace in that he does basically have his back up to a wall of light towards the end when the elves show up. But yeah, I mean that's one of my problems. Like I always, and it's one of those things that like I feel like it's tough to master, but I feel like you can pull the camera out a little bit and show a fight develop. Pulling in close like that, you feel like you're watching Nolan's first Batman film, Batman Begins, like where it's just too close and the fight just doesn't work. And that's a big problem with this one because it's kind of all leading up to that.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you're a little bit underwhelmed. You can be impressed with a lot of the stuff that goes on, but when you get to that point, you're underwhelmed.
Now, in terms of that, imagery in the film is awesome. Like the camera shots, the areas where it's filmed. Like, I know it's filmed in England. There's like some amazing shots of like the mountains, of the forests, all of those.
But not all of Middle Earth has to look like New Zealand.
There's also a lot where it is trying to look too Middle Earthy is what I get out of that. And what you were saying as well. Like, it all looks the same eventually.
How do you think they got that shot in the beginning? That panning shot of like going over the mountain? Do you think that was a drone? Just like
I think it had to be a drone.
It's 2009 though.
Oh yeah, maybe it wasn't a drone.
How prominent were drones then?
I mean, a helicopter shot maybe.
No, that's money right there.
Yeah, I know exactly. Right, so I mean, it definitely wasn't graphics.
No,
it was definitely a live shot. So.
I mean, they could have found stock footage.
Yeah, that could have been it as well. Yeah, I mean,
I wonder things like that when I watch fan films. That's one of the things I like to like pick out, and it's just like, if you're someone, if you listen to our show and you're interested in making fan films, reach out to some of the names that Rob drops because they might tell you a thing or two about a thing or two, and they're all pretty friendly people and willing to share some of their secrets.
That's the one thing that I'm never short of with being the only podcast that deals with fan films, is that these people love to talk about their fan films. If I could, I would technically be, not even technically, I would be able to interview one of these people every single day of the week, because they are always interested in talking to you about their project. They want to get their project out. They want to talk more about it. They want to, talk about their future products. We could have an interview every episode if we wanted to, but it's just the time frame of not being able to do that. And obviously nobody wants to hear an interview every single week. That's
exactly. For sure. Yeah. But sometimes you want to talk about fan films.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's just talk about the film rather than how it was made.
Exactly.
But you're right. In terms of the camera work, really well done. Costumes, I thought were really well done. Gandalf looked really good. I mean, and the thing about Gandalf as well, and what I really enjoyed, that it was natural facial hair.
Yes.
So many times you might see something where they might be wearing
this guy was not
beard.
Ian McCullum.
He wasn't. Yeah, exactly. But
I'll take him.
But the facial hair, I mean, you look at Santa, you can tell the fake Santas as opposed to the really good Santas that spend the time growing out their facial hair. They're really worth the effort to go see those Santas for your children over the ones that put like the big, looks like a big cotton ball on their head. But so I give him kudos for that. Even Aragorn Strider, he looked good too.
Looks good. He looks like, it's weird. He looks like a taller version of Elijah Wood. Like, he actually looks more like Elijah Wood than he does Viggo Mortensen.
Personally, I think he looks stoned through the whole film.
Oh yeah, he definitely looks like
his eyes.
He kind of looks like he looks like the medieval Shaggy.
Yeah,
like, what are we gonna do, Scoob?
The way he's looking there, sometimes he's kind of almost got his head cocked to the side, going, "I don't know what's happening right now." And then there's a lot of. Again, I'm not a big fan or know enough about Middle Earth, but I do know from being a Boy Scout and camping, you don't just lie in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Half the time you're seeing him wake up from all these things when he knows that there's orcs out there.
That's your question. My question is, how did he keep Gollum in the sack for what seemed like several days? Because he didn't even tie the top of it. He didn't even put a knot in it.
I'm sure Gollum, because he's supposed to have been a hobbit at one point that turned into the Gollum, right?
One of the river people, yeah.
Yeah. So he has to use the bathroom and eat and shit. I mean, you
all in the bag, all down.
Yeah,
in my head, I was thinking that. I was like,
so he's like pissing down his back.
Is Strider carrying this thing? And he's just like
a sack full of shit. And,
that warmth is welcome. Thank you, Gollum.
When Gollum's going to the toilet because he stops talking, and then it all starts to get a little bit warm.
The fishing pole is nice and cool, and also Jesus.
Can we change sacks, please? But I mean, he captures Gollum by like crumbling fish up. So
which fits,
but
fits
you don't
the Gollum character.
But then you don't see him feeding a fish to him at any time in the whole time he's doing all this walking and stuff like that.
Gollum doesn't need to eat. He's fed by the power of the One Ring.
Exactly. You caught him now.
So, all right, let's talk about something that is kind of universe breaking. I think, right? He fights a ring wraith.
At the very end, yes.
Ring wraiths are invisible.
Yes.
You don't see them unless you're wearing the One Ring.
Yes.
So how does he fight a ring wraith?
Well, he sees it, and then he fights it at the end.
How? That doesn't fit. Fit with the Tolkien universe, right? Because I did a little research. I started looking. They are the 9 men who owned the rings that were meant to serve the One Ring that Sauron used, and they go and once they're given, pretty much immortality and stuff like that, but they exist between planes. They exist
exactly.
between
They're
planes
not like real people.
One foot in death, one foot in life. You can't see them on our plane. It's why they only ever come for Frodo when he's wearing the ring. Like that, they're constantly in search of the ring. That's what they're doing. So, I mean, I
also feel like they don't do their job very well.
No. So
he hides behind a tree and, I don't see anybody then, I better go.
Well, they can't see the Shire, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I believe is mentioned. They can't see the Shire.
I'm talking about in the fan film.
Right.
Like, he sees the guy.
Right.
Like, but then he hides behind a tree.
But how does he see him? He's not wearing the ring.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. And that was one of the things
I think it was more just to add it in there because
But why?
I don't know, because people know it from the films, especially because, like we just said, this was filmed after Lord of the Rings.
The orc version of like Strider like following him, right? Like you have like that battalion of orcs that are following him as well, but you have like one like not super orc, but like a capable orc that's following him would have worked better than using a ring wraith, because there's no way the ring wraiths would even be aware. He doesn't have the ring. They may be aware of the goings on of people searching for the ring as well, but there's no way it would show itself to him. And I don't think they have the physical capability to do it. They only exist in that ethereal plane that you can only see when you put the ring on. So to me, I was like, oh, that's kind of universe breaking right there. Yeah. Which again goes into what I always talk about with fan films. Like if you want to play in a universe, play by the universe's rules.
Do it properly. Yeah. Don't add something in there just for the shock value, I guess. I mean,
because it's cool to see a hooded, cloaked figure fight
that you recognize from the films,
right? And
that's
fight
the
them.
Thing. You recognize it from the film. You know what it is from the film. Right. So why not put it into your film
and fight them poorly at that?
Yeah. I mean, that's very true. And even this is where this film sort of, it does have its flaws, is that it has that great story that they do mention in the YouTube comment, that it pays homage to Lord of the Rings, the films, as well as some of the things that Tolkien wrote. But at the same time, some
of the other tales and the Silmarillion as well.
But at the same time, they put their own, spin on it, own thing in there. Again, that part at the end there, you're just like, I don't know. I mean, and again, these films are made for these fans.
They are.
So was it to sort of please the fans and say, oh, here's something else from the film? Or was it, like you said, universe breaking? But either way, if you're a true fan, and we're not even the biggest fans.
I am not even the biggest fan.
We just read about it.
It's just something that I remembered from the films.
If you are the biggest fan, that you're probably going to pay, like, you're going to say, what is that?
Now, however, elves can see ring wraiths.
Well, elves are completely different.
Right,
yeah,
they're not.
They've got their own magic and everything like that.
But Strider does have, even though he's not part elf, he is very familiar with elves and has spent a lot of time with them. And they get into that in this film.
It doesn't take away the fact he's not an elf.
Maybe it's because of his blood. Maybe it's because he was the heir to a kingdom of men, and his line can be directly, derived from those ring wraiths, from those original men who served Sauron. That might be why. But if that's why, I need a little bit of that.
Yeah, you need to tell us a little bit.
You
more
need to tell me a little bit about it. Yeah,
especially the 39-minute film where we're watching 10 minutes of the film with him walking with a sack on his back.
Can I get into the thing that I disliked the most about this?
Absolutely.
It's got nothing to do with the acting. It's got nothing to do with the visuals. It's got nothing to do with the story. The sound editing for this was dog shit. It was awful. Sound effects and music, way up. Dialogue, way down.
Yep.
And I can only imagine that happens with fan films when they don't have the budget or the know-how to do pickup audio, to go into a studio or to go into, even a quiet place. And to be honest, we're filming in a studio right now. You might hear a chair squeaking here and there.
The touching of the...
So you might hear some things, but if we really wanted to spend the time, we could take all that stuff out.
Yeah.
And you can build a studio...
For just a podcast, yeah.
You could build a studio pretty cheap. You can build a soundproofing studio 5x5 box that people can stand in and pick up audio and stuff like that.
A lot of podcasters do too.
Yeah, for pretty cheap, you can do that. And so to see a fan film being made, and it's just like, and one
especially one like this,
that's paid such great attention to detail for a lot of things, to not go in and do some of that pickup audio to really help the dialogue stand out. That's the only thing I could think of why the dialogue is so low, because it was recorded and the microphones are picking up background noise because they're filming outside.
Yep.
There's wind, there's other things going on, and the audio might have been poor quality when it was turned up. So they turned the dialogue down, but it winds up being, because I watched this and I had to turn my TV up to about like 80. To hear it.
Yeah.
But when the music would play, I was like, fuck. I was turning
it back down.
I'm turning it down to 50. And then someone starts talking, I'm jacking it back up to 80, 85, 90, 100, just to hear what's going on. And I was like, man, that's just poor sound editing. And sound editing is one of the things that you can do and not have to spend any of your budget. You do have to spend one of your most important things, time, but you don't have to spend any money on doing it. But if it's something you're passionate about, I feel like you would go in and spend a little bit of the time doing it. So that's that.
No, I agree with you. I mean,
A little bit of appreciation for what Steve does.
you can go into Audacity or GarageBand and clean up any type of audio. I mean, like I said, Steve, my brother and my editor, he does a lot of that for us.
I do that for my show.
You do it for your show, yeah. You prepare a lot for him because we record here. You do a lot of that for him to get it ready for him. So it's something that you can spend a little bit of time on and get it fixed and get it ready. Yeah. Whereas that part almost made it feel like it was rushed a little bit. Yeah. I mean, when you spend, multiple days, maybe even multiple years, because I know from when I read it. Now, and this may have some point in it. I was reading some of the YouTube and some articles written on it. It was a collaborative effort over the internet. So what they did was they weren't all in one place at one time. Okay. And it was a 2-year project done all over the internet. So maybe it could have been that, A person did the filming, B person in a totally different country, totally different place did the sound. And, maybe who knows what's going on there. But at the same time,
right. There's a lot of factors we don't know, but we're not reviewing the process. We're reviewing a finished product. We're talking about a finished product. So
that's true. I mean, and if it's taken 2 years to get to where it is, maybe it's worth taking that
2 years and 6 months.
Yeah.
Why not
take that extra time to do a little bit better sound? Yeah. Right. You're right. And release just that little bit better of a product. I mean,
and and the best part is that's not something they still can't do.
Yeah.
They could still take this.
Yeah, 2009, and they haven't gone back and fixed it. So
they could if for some reason, let's say the fan film creator heard like this and wanted to, and especially with technology being better, they could reach out to so-and-so on Skype and have Aragorn redo his lines. Because Gollum's lines were fine. I never once could not hear Gollum. It was everybody else that I couldn't hear. And that's, I can only think of that explanation. There's plenty of other explanations, but that's a big knock for me because it does affect my level of enjoyment of a thing. I can go with it in every other aspect and still knock it down a few pegs just for that alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no, and I'm with you on that. It's one of those things where if there's one thing that takes you out of a fan film, then it takes away the whole fan film. I mean, it's one of those things. I've talked about this before. Again, I mentioned it, a couple of articles I've written on Big Shiny Robot. I keep mentioning it. Go read them. But I wrote an article once on an Overwatch fan film. Okay. And it was it was called The Widowmaker. Great fan film.
Based on one of the characters.
Based on the Widowmaker character, yes. Yeah. But there's one scene where they're fighting sort of outside and you see a waste management dump, not even a truck, but a waste manager
Was that done on the East Coast? Because Waste Management is a huge company on the East Coast, especially around us.
Yeah, but it's very prominent and you can see it. But if this Overwatch is filmed it's supposed to be a
different universe,
universe, there wouldn't be a waste management dump truck or whatever it is, like a trash bin.
I mean, you could have a trash truck there, but it
was one of those big dumper things that you put your trash into. Right. I'm like,
but it said waste management on it.
Blur it out or something.
Don't even do that. Just replace it with the name of something that would fit in that universe.
Exactly. But the moment I saw that, it took me out.
Yeah. It's it's all about adapting what you have to fit what you're doing.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things. If you don't have good audio, it doesn't happen all the time. We could probably talk to Mark, our friend who does Movie Cocktail with us, who has his own podcast, Cult Movie Cult. He could probably tell us about having to do pickup audio and stuff like that, because I'm sure he has to do it at times too. I've even I've sat with him and I've listened to the audio for one of his films, and he was asking me what to do to take out a sound that was in there, and I was like, it's gonna be tough. It might do this, it might do that, it might cause this problem, stuff like that. Or you can always just pick up audio.
Yeah, re-record it. Yeah,
right. And that's something, he's a filmmaker, so that's something he's aware of and something he has to do. And that's, when they're doing these films, they are filmmakers. They are making a film. It's a fan film and it exists in someone else's universe, but
still making a film. I mean,
right. And this is super nitpicky, the stuff we're talking about, but
that's what we're in. That's what we do. That's the podcast. I mean, we can't sit on a podcast and tell, oh, I love this film, and every single film is, oh, I love this film.
Exactly.
You're never going to have, people say, well, you're not really opinionated when you love everything. I mean,
all right. So the end of this one comes after Gandalf has
Gollum
has interviewed Gollum and stuff like that, and it kind of ends with, and this is like a direct prequel now to Fellowship of the Ring, because he says he's going to have to travel to the Shire.
Yep.
He's going to have to get the One Ring from Bilbo Baggins, and he's going to have to basically ask someone to take it to Mordor. And Aragorn says, when he's known as Strider in this, says, send them to me in Bree.
Yeah.
And
So sort of like, what was the one I'm thinking of? It's sort of like reading a book on Star Wars, and that I know I was reading they're now legends, but the early Han Solo trilogy book. Did you ever read those?
Yes, I have.
Because like the last book ends basically with him sitting in the cantina in Tatooine,
which is probably how the Solo film will end.
Yeah.
We're recording this before it came out.
Yes. Yeah. But similar thing. It sort of ends right there where you know what the next step is.
Right. Like it's literally like, you hear the cantina music and you see him sitting there, and like from the back you see Greedo walking up, and then it just goes dun, 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 dun. But I mean, that's how Rogue One ended, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Tantive 4 takes off, and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And like that Rogue One is ending literally minutes, hours before A New Hope picks up.
Yeah.
And that's the way I felt at this. And it was still kind of cool because I was like, I can literally watch this fan film and then go pop in Fellowship of the Ring. And things might look different, but
but you know where you are.
Right. You know where you are. You know
but you know a little bit of back before this now as well. That
the preceding events that have led to this.
Yeah.
I can't say the same thing
previously
about
on the Lord of the Rings.
I can't say the same thing about popping in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch the third Hobbit film. That's how much I didn't like them.
Yeah, it's just so long, and I mean, I prefer that story, but they just drew it out so much. I mean,
well, man, if you're ready, let's give this some fingers.
Definitely,
let's finger this motherfucker.
I'm going to start with you.
So I'm going to be giving it 3 fingers. I really enjoyed the visual aspects of it. I think they did a great job, with Gollum. They did a great job with what they had. Its 2 big knocks are the fights, and then can I give it 2.5? Am I able to do
Absolutely.
that? Am I able to cut part of a finger off?
Oh, you can just do up to the knuckle. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just take it. Just the tip. Take off the tip. I'm going to give it a 2.5 then, because I really have 3 big knocks, and it's the fighting. It's the sound editing, and then it is also, from what I think is kind of world breaking, or at least they didn't give you enough explanation. Why is that ring right there, and how is Aragorn able to see it?
Yeah.
I might have to rewatch the films, and maybe I'll get an answer for it. But like 2.5, it's one of the oldest fan films that people can point to and say it was like really great, and I understand that. But I think fan films have progressed a lot since this.
Now I'm going to go totally against you, and I'm going to go 4.
Okay.
Now, the sound, I did think you're right. It sort of took a little bit away from me. The fighting, yes. I had more umbrage with the fighting being that, like, it was not as believable as well choreographed for me. I was like, well, one person fighting against 20 orcs in the middle of a forest. I just didn't find that as believable as the fact that I didn't think it was that great of a fight. So for me though, that ending, those wraiths, I was like, at the same time, I was like, why? I even though I didn't do the research that you did, and thank you for that, but I was still at the same time going, but they didn't need to be there. He doesn't have the ring, so there's no reason for them to be chasing him. I mean, shouldn't they be somewhere else? Are they being introduced so that they can be ready for later on, or because this is a prequel. This is before that. So
I pulled this quote up.
Okay.
And this is from the Silmarillion. And this is just one sentence of this quote. And they became forever invisible, save to him that wore the ruling ring. And that is the direct quote about the ring wraiths.
Yep.
So that's what makes me think, like, how the fuck is anyone seeing them?
Exactly. So I think that was part of him sort of adding that in there from the Peter Jackson, from all that, to try and get like another well-known character. I mean, I liked how they didn't try to add hobbits like into this, because the whole size aspect and everything. Like, it was good to see Aragorn fighting against the orcs, because they did kind of make the orcs a little bit larger, it felt, but at the same time, in through the movie as well, the orcs weren't necessarily that much bigger than the humans.
Beasts.
Yeah,
some of
exactly.
them were, but not all of them.
But I like that, and I think that the the filming of hobbits as a small people might have been hard to do. And that's why I think that they did really well with taking the Gollum and put him in a sack the whole time.
Yeah.
Where you see him moving around, but you don't see him. You know, I think that was really well done. It just, again, storyline, I'm like, all you're seeing sometimes is him just walking. Like there's lots of multiple scenes where you just see him walking, crossing a river here, you know, laying down in the middle of nowhere.
You're literally giving my entire critique of Lord of the Rings. All they did, like, and it's just like Clark said, all they did was walk in that motherfucking movie.
but there's the part that takes me away is like he's lying there on like rocks right next to like a cliff face. I'm sure if he walked a little bit further up, there's probably an overhang or a little cave he could have slept in that would have been much more comfortable than sleeping on the open ground. Yeah. Especially when there's orcs out hunting you.
Absolutely.
I mean, but anyway, I got 4.
All right, 4. I don't think it's necessary for us to do a source material one on
I
this.
don't think we'll do
I think
anything
we've
like that.
peppered a lot of that discussion in, and to be honest, me and you will sound like idiots.
Yeah,
because we're cursory fans of Lord of the Rings.
We're not enough to say, hey, this, that, and the other. We mentioned enough of it.
We will just get torn apart on Twitter or anything if we started getting into like, look, if there is anything we said that's incorrect, if I'm incorrect in thinking that he shouldn't have been able to see a ring wraith, reach out to the Twitter.
We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you think of that, because that's a very important scene. I mean, if you know more than us, we found some basic information online, but obviously if you know more, if you're a fan and you know that there's something maybe behind Strider and why he can see them, let us know. fanfilmboys@gmail.com.
And you can also reach out to me at supermoviepod on Twitter.
We're going to take a break here. We're going to put some Podfix Network promos up, and we'll be right back.
Greetings and salutations. This is Fuzzy Dan from Who Spiked the Puns. Each week, with the help of some of my special friends from around the internet, we'll be mashing together 2 disparate movies to make something unexpectedly awesome. This is the podcast that doesn't take itself too seriously, because everybody knows bad puns don't fly. Find me now on whospikedthepuns.com or on a podcatcher near you.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I would like to introduce you to a little something I call the Brooke Reading Podcast. Each week, I read and discuss a novel, rate and review it, and tie in any movie or television iterations. If you would like to join in the discussion, you can find the Brooke Reading Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or direct downloads on Libsyn.com. Happy reading!
Hello, all you curious creatures out there. I'm Amber Ray.
And I'm Andrew McKay, and we are the hosts of Into the Portal.
If you like myths, legends, history with a paranormal twist, join us every week as we explore lesser-known mysteries of our world and beyond.
You can find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, and all other major podcast platforms, and at intotheportal.com, your gateway to the bizarre.
The only question is, do you dare peer into the portal?
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Well, nerds, geeks, and newcomers alike, we're the Shaken Not Nerd podcast, where each week we review movies and video games and discuss what's going on in the nerd world. With me, as always, is my co-host, Ian the Huge Footlong Johnson. Hey, babes. The Tom. Hello there. And Ollie, also known as Big Red. Hi. And I'm your host, Duty Dutram. And this is us.
About 5 minutes beforehand, I was talking to my friends, being like, if they make me say I love Harvey Norman, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. The second they said, I'm like, I love it, Norman! Fresh it!
I'll suck it dick! I'll suck it dick for what it's around!
Pink just released a new album, which apparently is really
Thank
good.
God.
Title purple.
Pink,
No,
right?
2 in the.
Where can people find us, guys? Why are you looking at me this time?
Well, I do believe you can find us on any relevant social media outlets.
Or the podcast app of choice.
Oh, there are a lot of good ones. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Shaken Not Nerd.
All right. And Dave, why don't you share with us where we can find you along with Podfix out there in the ether?
Yeah, so you can check me out on the Podfix Network website, www.podfixnetwork.com. You can follow the link there and you can check out all my episodes, or you can check us out on www.supermoviebros.podbean.com.
Excellent. And you can find us on www.fanfilmboys.podbean.com. We are Fan Film Boys Pod on Twitter. We are at Fan Film Boys on both Instagram and on Facebook. Give our page a like if you can, and follow us on Twitter. And if you can, definitely go on to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating review. It really helps us get found. I know a lot of people out there mention that in podcast worlds, but it really does help. So please, if you can, give us a try.
And if you want to check out any of the fan films we talk about, and you listen to us without checking them out, make sure that you give them a shot, man. Because just like us and iTunes reviews help us get seen by more people, your views and your likes on these projects help them get found as well. And you don't, just like reading Rainbow, you don't have to take our word for it.
Yep. Exactly. So again, thank you everybody for listening. It's been a wonderful show, and until next time, bye.
Bye.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at oddfixnetwork.com.